The Masonic membership crisis is real. In this video, you will learn about the 5 major problems that have caused the membership crisis so that we can work together to solve those problems and help Freemasonry not just survive, but thrive. This is the Resurgence of Freemasonry YouTube channel hosted by Koltko-Rivera. If you want to learn why and how we can make Freemasonry stronger than it has ever been, be sure to click the subscribe button below this video. Together, we can do this. In part 1 of this 3-part series, I described the full extent of the Masonic membership crisis. I have a link to part 1 in the description below. Basically, Freemasonry is headed for virtual extinction within the lifetime of men we are now initiating. In this video, I will describe the 5 reasons behind the membership crisis. Why is it so important to understand this? As one of my mentors taught me many years ago, a clear understanding of the problem prefigures the lines of its solution. If we understand why the membership crisis has occurred, we can solve it. As I mentioned in part 1, there are 2 top-level reasons for the membership crisis. Nationwide, the number of petitions has been dropping for decades, and the number of those dismissed for non-payment of dues, or NPDs, has been rising. But as I pointed out in part 1, knowing this begs the questions, why are petitions dropping, and why has the number of NPDs been rising? There are 5 major reasons why all this has been happening. They are the 5 problems underlying the Masonic membership crisis. Let's go over them one by one. The first major problem causing the membership crisis is a failure to deliver value in the lodge experience. In many lodges, Freemasonry fails to deliver what it promises. This leads men to leave and raises NPDs. Why do men come to Freemasonry? Not for the sake of donating to charity or even to give service. There are many opportunities for these and for fellowship aside from Freemasonry. At this point in the 21st century, men come to Freemasonry primarily for the sake of their own self-culture and education. Men come to Freemasonry in order to learn about the mystery of the universe and to improve themselves so as to better learn that mystery in the company of other like-minded men. This is what men come to Freemasonry to find, a way to understand the big questions, a way to improve themselves so that they'll be better able to handle the big answers, and a social context in which they can do that with like-minded brothers. This is what Freemasonry promises them with its centuries-long reputation and its impressive initiatory ceremonies. And then, so many lodges deliver business meetings with all the spiritual content of a phone bill. This is not the kind of experience that will bring men back to lodge month after month, year after year. There are several ways in which we fail to deliver value in the lodge experience. One of them is so important that it deserves to be mentioned as a problem all by itself. The second major problem causing the membership crisis is a lack of quality Masonic education. This leads men to leave and increases NPDs. The value of Masonic education is all too often honored in word without actually delivering it. When it is delivered in a lodge room, it is often given too little time or preparation to really have an impact. Or it just conveys information, but fails to focus on things that really change lives. Just as bad, it seems that few lodges have an overall approach or framework for delivering Masonic education. So the brothers hear a hodgepodge of different types of topics with no overarching order or structure to them. In 2014, I conducted an online survey of Freemasons. Hundreds of brothers responded, mostly from the United States, and by far, the single thing that they most wanted to see happen in Freemasonry was the widespread implementation of quality Masonic education. When we deliver poor Masonic education, or when we do not deliver it at all, we undercut much of the reason that men become Masons in the first place. A lack of quality Masonic education in many lodges is killing Freemasonry one NPD at a time. The third major problem causing the membership crisis is public ignorance about Freemasonry. This results in fewer petitions. Within living memory, pretty much every adult in America knew that the Freemasons existed. In 1954, Freemasons comprised about 7.8% of the adult American male population. There was one Mason for every 13 or 14 adult males in the U.S. That whole picture has changed today, of course. In 2016, Masons comprised barely over 1% of adult American males. There is only one Mason for about every 100 or so adult males in the United States. Hardly anyone knows that Masonry still exists. The net result is that Masons have become close to invisible in society. One group of Masons in the American heartland, the Knights of the North, described the loss of knowledge of the craft in the public consciousness in our day. I link to their website in the description below. To quote, "In less than 100 years after the birth of the first Grand Lodge in 1717, virtually every man, woman, and child in the Western world knew who Freemasons were and what the order stood for. Yet, 60 years after World War II, fewer and fewer people in society knew what a Freemason was or that the fraternity still existed." End of quote. No wonder, then, that the Right Worshipful Philip A. Hudson stated this during his 2007 grand oration in Florida. To quote, "The average person does not have a true concept of who we are or what we stand for. In today's time, would any worthy man want to become a member of a fraternity he knows nothing about?" End of quote. I know what some of you are thinking. What about Dan Brown? What about the National Treasure movies? Haven't these done a great deal to help inform the public about Freemasonry? It is true that Dan Brown's novel, The Da Vinci Code, and especially the movie version, put the name of the Freemasons in front of many people. This is also true of the first National Treasure movie. And these films and book did drive petitions up in some places for a limited time. But there are two things to keep in mind here. First, most people look at these films and novel as just what they are: fiction. Just because Masons are mentioned in them doesn't mean that most of these readers and film viewers believe that Masons exist. Spoiler alert, the first National Treasure film shows ballrooms full of golden treasure hidden by the Knights Templar beneath Trinity Church in Manhattan. Reality alert, in real life, there's no treasure there. And most film viewers realized that, and for all we know, they did not believe that the Freemasons are real either. Second, these films and book are passing into history. The recent media phenomenon began with the publication of the novel The Da Vinci Code in 2003, and continued with the release of the film National Treasure in 2004. For all practical purposes, the media phenomenon came to an end with the release of the film version of The Da Vinci Code in 2006, over a dozen years ago as I make this video. The second National Treasure movie did not feature fictional Freemasons at all, and director Ron Howard has been quoted in the media saying that he and the studio are passing on the opportunity to make a film of Dan Brown's so-called Masonic novel, The Lost Symbol. Instead, Howard went on to direct a film of Brown's following novel, Inferno. So that's it. The media hoopla about Freemasonry began in 2003 and ended in 2006, half a generation ago. One can still catch documentaries about Freemasonry on History Channel, and there are mentions of Freemasonry in the occasional cable TV show, but these all have a rather limited audience. For all practical purposes, Freemasonry has no profile among the general public, and that has consequences for the number of petitions we receive. The fourth major problem causing the membership crisis is poor preparation of the interested public and petitioners. This sows the seeds for NPDs down the road. Of those gentlemen whom we do initiate, we may be bringing in gentlemen who are not, in fact, interested in what Freemasonry is really about, and that certainly includes intensive self-discovery and self-improvement. The most worshipful Grand Master of Masons in New York, Jeffrey M. Williamson, now past Grand Master, had this to say in his first St. John's Day address in 2016. I have a link to it in the description below. To quote, "In recent times, a petition for membership was eagerly and hastily presented to any man who showed even the slightest interest in our fraternity. Prior to his acceptance, the prospect had little or no education as to what our expectations might be for him on his journey through Freemasonry, or what his expectations might be for us. This is not a system calculated to bring in only the best. The results are almost predictable. Some men who become Masons become easily bored, even at the most dynamic lodges, simply because they are not that interested in personal growth in the first place. I'll tell you about the fifth major problem causing the membership crisis, but first, a word from our sponsor. This video is brought to you by our Patreon campaign. It takes a lot of time and effort to produce the sorts of detailed videos that we present on this channel. We need your support to be able to do that. A pledge of $5 monthly, even $1, will make a big difference. Look for a link to our Patreon campaign in the description. The fifth major problem causing the membership crisis is our failure to address anti-Masonic propaganda. This lowers the number of petitions we receive, I think, rather seriously. I think this, in part, because it certainly got in the way of my petition, as I will explain in a few moments. The fact of the matter is that a substantial portion of the American public believe that Masonry is a satanic, devil-worshipping conspiracy bent on enslaving humanity. In 2016, I conducted 2 quick reviews. The first was the first 100 pages found in an online Google search of the term Freemasonry. The second was the first 100 videos found by a YouTube search of the term Freemasonry. The results were quite troubling. 1/5, 20% of the top-ranked web page results were clearly anti-Masonic in nature. Fully half, 51% of the top-ranked YouTube video results were also clearly anti-Masonic in nature. The anti-Masonic websites depicted Freemasonry as a satanic conspiracy bent on instituting totalitarian rule in the New World Order. If anything, these themes were picked up even more sharply in the anti-Masonic YouTube videos. Some anti-Masonic videos in the YouTube top-ranked 100 have had over 1 million views apiece. The number 1 ranked video on Freemasonry at the time contended that the fraternity is an ongoing indoctrination into Satanism. This video alone had over 2 million views at the time of my survey. The upshot of all this is that when a potential candidate goes online to find out information about the fraternity, a substantial proportion of what he encounters will be not just misinformed inaccuracies, but melodramatic delusions of the most lurid sort. Should he look for online videos on the topic, then the search for truth may be aborted at the very beginning because of the flood of highly developed but delusionally bizarre falsehoods about Freemasonry that are easily available on the internet. We must not tolerate this any longer. We must directly counter the grotesque and often sickening lies told about Freemasonry, lies that I believe keep many good men from the fraternity. I have good reason to believe this, because I was one of those men who were kept from the fraternity by anti-Masonic propaganda. My petition to a Masonic lodge was put off by perhaps as much as 20 years as a result of reading the false accusations against Freemasonry advanced by the notorious Stephen Knight in his popular book, The Brotherhood. Sometimes I think about what I could have accomplished as a Mason in those 20 years. We all should think about the many men who might otherwise have been truly great Masons had they not been led astray by anti-Masonry, an anti-Masonry that we have often abstained from responding to. Now that we've discussed the 5 major problems causing the Masonic membership crisis, in my next video I will describe 5 solutions to these problems. If we implement these 5 solutions, we can turn this crisis right around. Together, we can do this. If you find these ideas interesting, subscribe to the Resurgence of Freemasonry YouTube channel below. Visit our Facebook page for more interesting content. Links to our Facebook page and our Patreon campaign are in the description below. This has been Mark Koltko-Rivera for the Resurgence of Freemasonry video channel on YouTube.